Sony just announced the update we've been waiting for.
How's it going, everyone? Welcome to PSReady, the channel all about PlayStation. This is the weekly news wrap up where I dig around the internet and find the 5 biggest PlayStation news stories.
Also, in the first version of this video, I actually predicted this update and I got pretty much everything that's included with it between folders and 1440p support. The only thing I missed, which is super weird that they're not supporting this, is that variable refresh rate does not work on 1440p monitors. It just works on 1080p and 4K. They kind of make it seem like that's permanent, but it might just be for now. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, there have been a few leaks that have been going around the internet basically saying that the PS5 will be getting some sort of firmware upgrade by the end of the year.
Real quick before we jump into the video, I have so many PlayStation accessories linked down below, like SSDs, controllers, monitors, TVs, headsets, anything you can think of for the PS5, and it would really help me out if you guys use those links to pick any accessories you need up, because I get a little bit of a kickback.
Now, obviously, anyone can kind of predict that because Sony's been pretty regular of doing an early year, like an early spring update, and then a late summer, early fall update for the PS5, sort of like clockwork. They've added stuff like being able to upgrade your SSD, being able to share photos directly to Twitter from the PlayStation app. They've added variable refresh rate, auto refresh rate switching, you know, some really cool features that people have been requesting. But there are 3 that people really want: being able to put your apps into folders, being able to apply themes to your console, and of course, Sony adding a web browser to the PS5. Now, as far as the web browser goes, I don't think this is ever going to happen. Sony has fallen victim multiple times to people hacking their consoles and being able to just install any games they want. It happens to Sony more than it happens to pretty much anyone else except maybe Nintendo. So as far as the web browser goes on the PS5, I think that is going to stay locked to logging into Twitter or Facebook or any platform where you can share pictures, and that's going to be about it. Themes have to be right around the corner. The PS5 is set up to have great backgrounds. Like when you highlight a game on the cross media bar, it gives you a sweet background with motion and music. If they could just extract that and give us a way to keep those as permanent additions to the console, I think that's great. I also don't think this is something that needs to be added like super right away, but we're getting 2 years into the PS5's life cycle and we're running out of big features other than 1440p that they still need to add. So now is about the time where I feel like they can start focusing on a cosmetic feature like that. But one feature I really think they need to include sooner rather than later in this update is, of course, folders. We now have access to a massive library of games if we pay for PS Plus Extra or Premium, and if you download a ton of those games to your console, especially if you've upgraded your SSD or included a USB 3 hard drive to the back of your console, you're going to have a huge library that's kind of hard to get to, kind of hard to navigate. So having a folder on your home screen of your PS5 where you can keep like the 4 games you're playing right now, or group together your PS Plus games you want to eventually play, or even group together your streamable games that you're downloading from the now defunct PlayStation Now, which is just called like PlayStation Plus streaming. There's just so many different options of games you can just download to your console whenever you want now versus before, if you're subscribing to PlayStation Plus, that I feel like they really got to add some sort of folder support to this machine. They have done a good job making it so the library screen will only show games that are installed on your console in alphabetical order. You can also sort by like playtime. That's really cool. But yeah, we had folders on the PS4. People really loved using them. So I'd really like to see them here. And of course, I need to see 1440p support. We know the console can do it. The competition does it. The main monitors that people want to go out and buy for these machines are 1440p, 144 hertz. Sony, you got to make it happen sooner rather than later. As far as when this update's going to drop, we've seen them come as late as September before, but I would assume that we'll probably get something towards the end of August, maybe preceding something like the big showcase Sony does at the end of every summer these days. I don't know when it's coming, but I feel like before the big fall game season, definitely before The Last of Us Part 1 comes out, we'll start seeing at least a few trickle-down updates coming to the PS5. We're right at the end of July, and I don't know if Sony's clamping down on leaks, but we haven't had any leaks about what games we're going to get on PS Plus in August. I'm kind of bummed out because before we just got a few games for PS5 and PS4, but now we're getting like multiple drops a month. We're getting big releases like Stray. We're also getting PSP and PS1 classics. There's a lot of games being offered to us if we pay for the extra tier of PS Plus. Sony wasn't able to stop all the leaks though, because it looks like we're going to get a heavily requested PS1 game at the very least next month, which is awesome because it's one of Capcom's best and I feel like most forgotten about franchises. Crisis, we're apparently getting the first Dino Crisis because it showed up on the PlayStation Store as downloadable for a lot of people and then was very quickly removed. Now, if you've never played Dino Crisis before, but you've played some of the earlier Resident Evil games, like the first 3, where they had the pre-rendered backgrounds, the tank controls, the zombies that could attack you as you walked through a door and you couldn't see them, you played Dino Crisis. Just replace the zombies with dinosaurs, replace the Spencer Mansion with like an island that has a lab. Honestly, they could kind of take place in the same universe if Capcom really wanted to connect them, because you're not just like some random person like in Jurassic Park when the dinosaurs break out, there's just like random normal people running away from them. You're like a trained killer of dinosaurs in Dino Crisis, and people have really wanted a remake of this franchise, to the point where during that state of play, when Capcom announced Exo Primal, people like myself included, like freaked out for a second. We were like, oh, are we getting a remake of Dino Crisis in the style of Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake? It's one of the better early Capcom games with those tank controls. It controls just a little bit better. I actually played through it on my Vita, and there's a few Dino Crisis games. So if you do enjoy it and you want to see what the franchise has to hold, and you want to get that false hope that I have every time Capcom shows off something related to dinosaurs, this is a great game to download to your PS5. Another game that seems to have leaked is a Disgaea game that came out on PSP. If you've never played Disgaea before, it's kind of like a turn-based JRPG series. I'm not a huge fan of it. It was one of the Vita games I picked up early on in that console's life cycle. I don't think there's anything wrong with these games. It actually seemed kind of cool. I'm just not into the whole art style and aesthetic of it. But if you're into JRPGs or turn-based strategy games like Final Fantasy Tactics, for example, this will probably be right up your alley. And I've heard that this PSP one is pretty good. So if that drops, maybe give that a shot as well. And of course, things are a little weird with Stray. No one knows if that's going to be a permanent addition to people's PS Plus extra accounts, or if it's going to be like Persona 5, where that came along with the PS Plus collection and then was removed from it. Still the only game that was ever removed from the PS Plus collection. So if you added Stray to your account and you haven't checked it out yet, I would get around to playing that one sooner rather than later, because I've got a feeling it's not going to stay on the service very long, because Shadow Warrior 3 was a day and date release on PlayStation Now, the service that this one replaced, and that one's already being removed fairly soon. So yeah, if you got Stray and you had it on the back burner but you still plan on playing it, do it while you already paid for it. Next up, we got to talk about something that really sucks: losing access to games, because we've seen this before with PS3 era games. I think Ubisoft is about to shut down the multiplayer for a ton of Assassin's Creed games, and on the surface you're like, who cares? Who's playing these multiplayer Assassin's Creed games? But the issue is, a lot of these games have trophies tied to their multiplayer. So if you ever wanted to go back and get the platinum trophy in one of these games, like you just got the random urge to finish out the last 3 multiplayer trophies you needed in Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, then yeah, you're out of luck now, because the servers for those games are shutting down. Now, Sony, on the other hand, has been pretty good about keeping their games alive for a really long time. Like the Vita Call of Duty Black Ops Declassified, that had its servers online for a super long time, as did Resistance Burning Skies, and I'm 99% sure that Killzone Mercenary on the Vita still has its multiplayer servers open as well. But unfortunately, it looks like Sony might be changing their minds a little bit under this new Jim Ryan leadership, because they're already shutting down online servers for PS4 games that are totally playable on both the PS4, PS4 Pro, and PlayStation 5. I was right, the servers are up for Killzone Mercenary, but unfortunately that is one of the games being shut down on August 12th, which is actually pretty soon. Also, you're going to have Killzone Shadowfall shut down, and RIGS Mechanized Combat League, which is kind of crazy because RIGS is a PS VR launch title, I'm pretty sure, or at least a launch window title. That is relatively new, and of course Shadowfall is a launch title for the PS4. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's multiplayer trophies tied to that game, and Sony also split the multiplayer off into its own game you could buy for 15 bucks. So if you need trophies in any of these 3 games, make sure you go grab them while you can, because you only have a couple weeks, so you might have to prioritize, like, do I want the platinum trophy in Killzone Mercenary, or do I want the platinum trophy in Killzone Shadowfall? Or you could be crazy and get the platinum trophy in RIGS. I'm honestly not sure if RIGS has a platinum. I would think it does, because I'm pretty sure it was a full price VR game, but I don't know. Regardless, if you've got anything to clean up in these games, make sure you go do it. And the craziest part about this is, as we've seen, this does not stop at multiplayer games. Like Ubisoft has been talking about how they're gonna go into people's Steam accounts who bought Assassin's Creed Liberation HD and revoke access to that single player game. Not only stop you from buying it in the future, they're removing it from the Steam store so no one can buy it. They're also taking it away from people's accounts who purchased the game previously. Now they've said they're going to look into it and they're going to see what they can do about removing it from people's accounts, but the fact that this was even a possibility is crazy. That really is the biggest downside to digital only games or buying digital games or everything moving to the cloud. These games can just go away at any given time, and that's kind of why these companies don't want you to be able to own anything anymore. Like when they put all the games on the cloud and you just use a disc to activate and say like, yeah, you have the license to play this game, like with Halo Infinite, for example, then they really have no obligation to make sure you can always play that game. But if they're selling you a disc with a game on it, at least in a playable state, they have an obligation to make sure that that keeps working on at least the console you bought that disc for. Next up, we got to talk about some PC updates for Sony games because there's a lot of stuff in the ether right now. Of course, we know Spider-Man is coming August 12th. I'm super excited for that. I cannot wait to play this game at 60 frames per second on my PC and then be able to take that same save on the go on my Steam Deck. We also haven't gotten any updates in a while on Uncharted: The Legacy of Thieves collection, which is kind of weird because that was announced for PC a really long time ago. But the two updates we have today are around The Last of Us Part 1 and Returnal. So we'll start with Returnal. That game is coming to PC. It is literally sitting on the Steam store right now, probably ready to be put up for sale. There have been screenshots that have leaked from it, and also they've been updating it super recently with Steam Deck iconography. They're saying this game is verified and optimized for Steam Deck. I hope they just release it in the next few weeks because I would love to play Returnal again, especially on a handheld. And when it comes to The Last of Us Part 1, everyone was kind of wondering how long the wait would be between the PS5 version and the PC version. And a lot of people assumed, myself included, it would be at least 6 months, maybe even a year, because Sony wants to make sure they can capitalize on that release on PlayStation, because obviously they make 100% of the $70 purchase on PS5, whereas they only make 70% of that $70 purchase on Steam. So if they have a little bit of a gap there and keep things vague by not telling us when this game's going to come out on PC, they're going to capture some of those people who are sitting in the middle that really want to play The Last of Us Part 1 on PC, but are happy to kind of play it on PS5 if they know they're not going to have to wait a year to do it. But thankfully, it looks like we're not going to have to wait long at all, because the quote we've gotten from someone at Naughty Dog is that the port is going to come to PC very soon after the PS5. Now, what does very soon mean? In game terms, it can mean anywhere from like a week to like 6 months. I still think that 6-month window is totally believable, because when you compare a 6-month release window to what we've gotten before, which is like a 2 to 4 year release window, that is a very soon release after the PS5 version comes out. But if we're talking in terms of like what I want soon to mean, I would hope it's like within a month or two, because I would really like to see The Last of Us come to PC before Halloween. So when I go home for Halloween this year, like I do every other year, I'd like to be able to play it on my Steam Deck. That's like my pie in the sky wish for The Last of Us Part 1. But it's good to know that A, more PlayStation games are coming to Steam, and B, they're coming a lot faster than we thought they would, and C, we're going to get The Last of Us soon versus having to wait 2 to 4 years like we did with other games like Horizon Zero Dawn. And finally, guys, there is a summer sale going on the PlayStation Store right now, and the cool thing is, if you're a physical gamer, you can get a lot of the same deals on other storefronts like Best Buy, and I will have pretty much every game I talked about linked down in the description if you're one of those people who likes buying their games on disc. The first game I'm going to recommend is The Quarry. This is the new game that's a spiritual sequel to Until Dawn. It's separated from the Dark Pictures anthology, and as someone who has played every single mainline supermassive game release, all of the Dark Pictures games and Until Dawn, this is my favorite game they've ever made by far. And honestly, the kind of monster it is in this game, I'm not going to spoil it because it's kind of a cool reveal. This is my favorite movie story thing, entertainment piece around this monster ever. It is so good. The cast is great. They've got horror mainstays like Ted Raimi, they've got Lance Henriksen, they've got Lin Shaye, they've got David Arquette from Scream, they've got a bunch of up and comers. I mean, even Justice Smith from Detective Pikachu. Detective Pikachu's son himself is in this game. And yeah, it's only $40 right now, so if you've ever had a passing interest and you're kind of waiting for the sale to come down, I think it is well worth $40. And honestly, I was one of those people who was like, man, it's crazy this is 70 bucks. I'm glad I paid 70 because this is my game of the year so far. Persona 5 Royal is $21. This obviously works on your PlayStation 5 super well. The new version, the PS5 native version, is coming out later this year, and it's not going to be a free upgrade, but from what we've seen of that new version, it doesn't look like the upgrades are anything really to write home about. This will be the fourth time Persona 5 has been re-released if you count the PS3 edition, the PS4 edition, and then the Royal edition. They're doing a PS5 one now, which will be the fourth time. But if you want to try it out for a cheap price, like maybe you played the initial version on PS Plus collection, 21 bucks is hard to beat. Ghostwire Tokyo, the pseudo PS5 exclusive from Bethesda Game Studios' own studio, Tango Gameworks, the people behind The Evil Within and The Evil Within 2, that is on sale for $30 right now. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is a Ubisoft style open world game where you're walking around a perfectly realized version of Tokyo. It's kind of spooky. It's definitely not horror. The gameplay gets a little repetitive, but it's got that like Tango Gameworks magic where they mess up on all their games, right? Like there's always weird stuff in The Evil Within 1. There's always weird stuff going on in The Evil Within 2, but you power through those games because they have that Tango Gameworks magic. That's the same thing that's happening here, but this is like their most technically polished game they've ever released. So for 30 bucks, I think it's definitely worth the pickup. And speaking of Tango Gameworks, their best game, in my opinion, The Evil Within 2, is only $8. Look, a lot of people are going to tell you The Evil Within 1 is like this hidden gem and it's so much better. They're wrong. I'm telling you right now, this game's a clunky mess. It doesn't look that good in 2022. The story doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like one of those games that you kind of have to be a sweaty tryhard to beat, so everyone who beat it, or at least got towards the end of the game, is like, oh, this is a diamond in the rough. I'm like that about The Evil Within 2. It's got open world aspects that are really contained and actually feel fun to play. Sebastian controls a lot better. The story overall is a lot better. There's a ton of great horror movie references in the game. The shooting feels awesome. The boss battles are great. And for $8, you really can't go wrong.